How do you rebuild countries after they've been decimated from a hurricane or a volcano, which has literally obliterated everything from their morgues to their prisons to their land records? That's pretty darn complex. And, we can't just do it through training. We have to build teams. We have to build capacity at the community level, at the peer level, to really affect sustainable change. And I think today, 2024, this is why really looking at what does it mean to enhance, to scale. Some people call it democratize the coaching process. To me, it really is about bringing coaching to the masses. And it is about activating all of our brilliance, all of our talents, all of our strengths to really come together for these moments where we can work together around common issues, common opportunities, and common challenges. Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Money Podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Evana Valle, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Money is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Money podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time. It is May 2024, the end of May, and we're looking forward to kicking off this new season of the Coaching Money podcast. So, Evana, how are you today?
Hi, Jen. I'm doing great. And I'm so excited to be here, excited to have this be part of the starting point of a coaching conversation with you and with our listeners, and thrilled to jump in and get started.
Absolutely. And if you haven't met us before, I'm the CEO and founder of Potentials Realized. We started 20 years ago as a one-stop shop for all things group and team coaching. So you might be wondering, what is Coaching Many? And Coaching Many comes from my 2013 book, From One to Many, Best Practices for Group and Team Coaching. And so if you haven't met us before, maybe you've heard of us, Group Coaching Essentials, Team Coaching Essentials, and of course, Potentials Realized. So it's really fun to partner with Evana. Evana is our team lead for group coaching and all things group coaching. And we really have a lot of fun working with clients all over the world. Since 2004, I've been in business. And about 18 months after opening the doors here, we had the first request to offer group coaching training. A lot of coaches were looking at the work that I was doing and said, Jen, can't you help us do what you're doing? And Group Coaching Essentials was born. So every month since 2006, January, this what is now an award-winning ICF CCE program has been offered. And Evana, you've been with us now since 2022?
Yeah.
Wow. And Evana has literally been running every month with Group Coaching Essentials. So tell us a little bit about you and why you feel that group coaching, team coaching, coaching money is so important.
Thank you. Yeah. So I've also been coaching for 10 years as a certified coach. And one of the things that I really find joy is having that conversation with colleagues, peers, we'll say, of fellow coaches. I've really been doing it very actively with the Potentials Realized community and family, and also beyond. And so I think it really is important that coaches have a place where we can have these conversations and really kind of even level set where we are, where we want to go. And that's really the work that I do in my own client base, is really supporting people in the dance of relationships. Oftentimes it's people who are leaving a relationship and trying to get regrounded to who they are and what they want to move forward. And I think part of the Coaching Many conversation involves that. It's required for each of us as coach, but also for the space that we hold. So don't know if I actually answered your question, but that's where I stand. And I think it's a very important conversation. And I think it's important that because we've been doing this, you've been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing this individually, meaning for myself, for the last 10 years. And we've now danced together for the last 2.5 years. But it is around creating that conversation and normalizing what is actually Coaching Many, what it is, what it's not.
Yeah.
and how do we evolve as coaches, as our participants, our clients evolve? How do we stay on our edge, on our growth edge, whatever you want to call it? And I think for me, this is part of what I see this space, this conversation with you and I to hold and to have for our fellow peers and colleagues and coaches, but also business leaders, because we're both working in organizations.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And, just as you sort of take us to, it's really, why do we do this work? It's for the benefit of our clients. And probably many of you have read me. So I wrote the world's first book on group coaching, published way back in 2009, Effective Group Coaching. It's now been used for 15 years as the required text or recommended textbook on group coaching. And I wrote that in part because there was nothing in print. If you go back to 2008, I was speaking at a conference on group coaching, something that I've been doing now for 20 years. Why group coaching? Why is it important? And these are some of the topics we'll be getting into here. But, someone was in the back of the room, and little did I know they were an executive editor for a publishing company. And they came up to me afterwards and said, would you consider, this is really interesting. Like I had such a good experience with others in the room. I didn't realize that coaching could actually involve others. And I think that's a big theme that we'll be looking at throughout the Coaching Many podcast, is the fact that this is a collaborative space for capacity development, for peer learning, for expansion, for really tackling today's complex issues. When I fell into coaching almost 23 years ago, I was a leader with the UN. Many of you know that story, but I was working on the fringe of very complex challenges. How do you rebuild countries after they've been decimated from a hurricane or a volcano, which has literally obliterated everything from their morgues to their prisons to their land records? That's pretty darn complex. And, we can't just do it through training. We have to build teams. We have to build capacity at the community level, at the peer level, to really affect sustainable change. And I think today, 2024, this is why really looking at what does it mean to enhance, to scale. Some people call it democratize the coaching process. To me, it really is about bringing coaching to the masses. And it is about activating all of our brilliance, all of our talents, all of our strengths to really come together for these moments where we can work together around common issues, common opportunities, and common challenges. So, for those that are thinking, well, why, what benefit would there be? We're talking to you whether you're a coach, maybe you're a leader, maybe you're a community member. I think, again, contextually, 2024, coaching is a skill set that everyone needs around the world. And that's why we're doing this podcast, because I know not everyone heads to our YouTube community calls that now have been in effect for many, many, many years. But podcasting goes many, many places. And maybe you recognize my voice. And that's probably because for 3 years, I had with Michelle Mullins, we had the Remote Pathways podcast. And we saw how that podcast just put its arms around the world. And that's my hope for this as well. Because here's something you don't know. Evana and I are sitting in very, very different spaces in the world. So Evana, what would you like to share about where you call home and where you do your work from?
Sure. So I call home Italy. I'm in Italy. I'm in a small town, a seaside town in the Italian Riviera. And I've been here now for 4 years. And I was born and raised just close to you, actually, in a little town of Aurelia, Ontario, Canada. And I think what's important for me with this work and this conversation, and it actually, I came to you for your leadership and training during the pandemic. I came starting with virtual facilitation essentials and then jumped into group coaching essentials and then. But it really is, how can we adapt ourselves, in the coaching conversation? And I loved what you said earlier, Jen, around, you might be a business leader, you might be a coach, you might be an entrepreneur, but at the end of the day, for me at least, this is really a conversation, a coaching conversation. But another layer beyond that is, how do we connect with one another? Whether you're wearing your parent hat, whether you're wearing your leader hat, how can we use these skills, these competencies in a way that we can actually influence and have a greater impact in a many conversation. So I know you do a lot of work with organizations and coaches and business leaders, and I'm dabbling in this too in Italy, even with a group coaching conversation, but it's also bigger than that. And I will, if I can say this, what the reason why I went into coaching, and I'm going to just be blushing as I say this, was because I was naturally wanting to help people. And my attitude was, if I'm helping people, why not get paid for it? But the reality was, in my first coach training, there was one of the assistants at CTI who said to me, in order to be a great coach, you have to be willing to look under the hood of your own car. And that's been my journey. And that's also led my vision to why this conversation is especially important, not only for my clients and the work that I do, but also for us as coaches, for us as business leaders, parents, moms, whatever. Are we looking under the hood of our own car? Are we actually looking at the skills? Are we leaning into the skills and those conversations that can have influence in a way that we want to have influence, have impact in the way we want to have impact? That's why I'm here. And that's why this conversation, as I get goosebumps, because I'm a somatic person, is so important, I think, for me, and I hope for those who are listening.
I love that. And I so appreciate, what I love about partnering with Evana is we're very different styles. And that's part of the generative space that gets created every time we bring more than one person into the room. Because in group or team coaching, it's not about just the coach and one other person. It's about that magical dance, that interplay, the emotion, the energy that gets co-created together, which could take us to places that we would not go ourselves, right? And I think, again, in today's world of ongoing change, the need for ongoing learning, the need for not only going underneath the hood, but going deep and maybe thinking about what's needed next, because the world is continuing to change and our conversations are continuing to change. What I find interesting, having worked in this space for 2 decades now, is as much as the world changes, it's even more important for the foundations of this work to be deepened and sharpened. And a lot of people call themselves experts in this field at this moment, but have they been around to see not only the transition within a few years, but over several decades? Every day I am still learning as a group coach, as a coach educator, as a coaching supervisor. And that is really a blessing. And so I think we want to also, in this format of the Coaching Many podcast, raise some things that might feel a little bit provocative. But I want to say that this field has always been provocative. When I started this work, my work was met with a lot of resistance. My coach training was met with a lot of resistance. And you might say, oh, but wait, everyone's always been doing groups. No, this was a disruptive process. This has been a very disruptive evolution in the coaching profession. And even today, people will say, oh, coaching isn't bringing in visuals or little exercises. That's not coaching. Well, we're going to bring it back to the ICF competencies, because really, when you are coaching many, we as coaches need to scale. We need to evolve our practices to meet the diverse needs, ways of seeing the world, and approaches that our clients expect. And so really, this work is disruptive and innovative by nature. It's not something that I have necessarily been known to speak to, but I think that is becoming an evolving part of my role as, one of the leaders and one of the founders in this space. Some that have founded this space and created this space are no longer in this plane. And so as one of those elders, I think it's really important that we actually go back to the basics. Why is this work here? Because it's not just to make more money. It really is to affect change in ways that we cannot do in a one-on-one environment. So I think as we continue to look as a profession, what is the role of coaching? What is the space that this place can affect change in? If we look at anything from climate change to social justice issues, those are big areas where change is not affected one drop at a time. And I say that not only as a coach educator, but as someone who has and does continue to work on the issues of the world where we're affecting change, but we have to harness the collective capability. It is not about building one leader at a time. It is about affecting a collective. So as you can hear, my passion coming out.
Lots of passion coming out.
Evana, what do you feel is really important for people to know about, why to tune in? What can people expect from our conversations here?
Yeah, I think what you're saying around, what about the evolution, I'm going to use my own words, of the coaching industry. Even if I look at like the last 10 years that I've been a coach, like you have you have another decade in terms of your story. And so for those who are coming in newer into the profession, we might be taking some of these things for granted. We might be coming with ideas of group coaching. Everyone's doing it. Yes, everyone says they're doing it, but are they doing it? Are they actually, as you said, are they actually creating that change? Are they having that impact? And this is one of the things that I say in all of our group coaching essential programs is this program has been running for like 18 years, 2006, January 2006, and it's been running continuously. And Jennifer's intellectual property continues to evolve as the profession, but as the needs of our participants, our leaders, whether it's professional, personal, have evolved. So what my hope with this podcast is that we can actually normalize some of these things that we think are, of course, this is the way it is, when sometimes they might not actually be that. I know you've worked with the UN. I've dabbled with also many different cultures. I hope to bring that conversation in. How do you work with not only demographics, but also cultures? And I know even your superpower quiz has really helped people identify where their strengths are. But for me, this conversation really is about how do we evolve and challenge our own ideas and our own beliefs around what this actually means so we can evolve and grow.
I love that. And really hear, the word evolve, grow, change, whether you are, as Evana said, new to this or experienced. We really hope that you're going to enjoy our upcoming episodes. We're committed to doing at least one season, probably more, but as we know, we're really going to spend time in these next few episodes looking at the landscape. What does coaching money mean? What are the benefits? What are the benefits for our clients? What are the benefits for coaches? What are the cornerstones of coaching, right? It's not a week goes by where people say, oh, I've heard, Jennifer, that you can't do this. That when you work with a group, it's not coaching, it's training. Well, what is coaching and how do we get to the core, capital C, of coaching and the competencies? So Evana is also a mentor coach. I've been a mentor coach since 2007. That's a dog's age in this space. But, really, what is coaching? And whether we're sitting down one-on-one with a group or a team, coaching is coaching is coaching. And that's where I hope that you will, as a listener, learn something, whether you are a professional coach, you are an internal coach, whether you are a leader as coach, whether you are a peer coach, because we also want to speak to the fact that the derivatives of coaching are many. They are expanding. They're continuing to expand because this work is about conversation. And we all, everywhere in the world, thrive when we connect and have conversation. In our episodes, we're also going to be diving into some of the other core areas, looking at, how do you activate awareness, for example? How do you support learning? We're going to talk about the experiential roots of this field, et cetera, et cetera. So, Evana, is there anything else you have or you want to speak to individually or collectively to our stake in this space and what we hope to achieve in our upcoming episodes?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. For me, I think one of the big things that I really want to kind of bring presence, as you said earlier, was the fundamentals, the foundations, and also is the conversation of integrity around that. So there will be, I anticipate between the two of us and with our listeners, there are going to be provocative thoughts. There are going to be things. My hope is that we do allow people to go, oh, wow, I never looked at it like that. Or, wow, I need to actually reconsider how I see this. I have to reconsider my role as a group coach. Maybe I need to go and do more training. Maybe what I thought I was doing isn't actually what I'm meant to be doing if I want to stay in integrity with my competencies, with the code of ethics, whatever that might be. So to me, it's, allowing that deeper, reflection. And it's also about, spurring ideas, creativity. It's like feed the inspiration of this conversation and allow it to inspire you in doing greatness and being great, and in your own evolution and growth, both as a coach or as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, but also as a human. To me, this is really about a conversation as a human. And so that's going back into the work that I do that's the work I do, is really support people to be their best selves. So that way they can be their best selves for their families, their jobs, whatever that is. But it really starts with ourselves. And that's why I love this conversation of many, but the conversation of many often has to start with ourselves and how we are in integrity with who we are and how we show up and how we want to operate in the conversation.
I love that. And again, I think you speak to such an important part. Groups are not everyone's thing. And I think it's really important. Part of this whole discussion is, are you a group person? Are you not a group person? Like, I think many people are confronted when they are in a group as to their uniqueness. That's the way I like to frame it. We are all very different people. And, that difference becomes augmented many times when we are in a group. We see how we are the same, but how we are different. And so I think there is an opportunity when we're in the group and team coaching conversation, we're in the peer coaching conversation, we're in that landscape of many, to see ourselves, our strengths, as well as our blind spots. And I think, again, from a different cultural lens as well, for some cultures in the world, that is very confronting. I always thought, and I've always been a group person from the time I was young. I've lived and operated in very collaborative environments. I was a lifeguard. And as people know, in lifeguarding, it's not just you. You are part of a team, and your team capacity means the difference between life or death. And so in training in that mindset from the age of 15, the last 4 decades of my life has been about how do we do our best work, not individually, but collectively. And to what you've just said, Evana, like, in order for us to bring our best self to a team environment, we need to know who we are. We need to understand what we're great at, but also where might our blind spots be in the way, and actually in, most of my career be a life or death issue. And that's a pretty radical standpoint as well. I was in a conversation about 12 months ago, and someone said, oh, I just think groups are just not, like, I get so confronted. And I said, well, that's maybe something you need to explore, right? It's just another layer of this conversation. So inquiry for you, right? And an inquiry in coaching is really that question that people sit on, percolate on, reflect on. But I want to invite people, as an inquiry out of today's episode, to think about, what do you bring in a collaborative conversation zone? What do you bring if you're part of a team? What do you uniquely bring to a group experience where people are coming together for a shared exploration? That is not something that you're probably going to be able to answer off the top of your head, but we do want to plant that seed. What makes you unique? And how do you want to shine, right? Like, I think there's a real joy. I think you said the word joy earlier in our conversation here, but I think there can be a real range of exploration. We can go to the depths, but we can also go to the heights in this work, and also in ways that we might not do alone. So, Evana, as we come towards the end of today's episode, what else do you think is important to look at, or anything else you want to add to some of the inquiry I just raised?
Yeah, no, I think you did that really beautifully. For me, there's a layer of who we are, absolutely, and I think that's the foundational layer. And then there's also this layer of like being responsible in how you um I'm going to say, identify yourself as it relates in the conversation of many. And I know we're going to go more deeper into the competencies and who we are as coaches, but I think there is a fundamental piece of, you know, I guess because my value of integrity is my value of integrity, but like, how are you positioning yourself? Is it an integrity to who you are? Is it an integrity to what the conversation wants and needs? Even with this group coaching engagement yesterday, like, are you willing to adapt? I had to adapt to what the conversation, right? Like the individual members, but also what the collective conversation wants. And so my invitation, I guess, for me, my invitation is come with a growth mindset or an open attitude to this podcast. Like, allow yourself to challenge yourself with some of the things that we're thinking about. I'm not here to make you believe or agree with everything that I'm saying. I'm just opening up a conversation to allow you to kind of deepen, or you have some thought-provoking ideas, or maybe you leave with more questions. So the inquiry that Jen left is beautiful, and just allow yourself to really use this space with Jennifer and I to explore who you are as a coach, and what that means for you today, but also what does that mean for the people you're supporting. Again, regardless if it's in a official coaching conversation, in an internal organization, or even at home. How you show, I forget who said, like, how you do one thing is how you do many things. So use this container as a conversation for you to really explore who you are as a human, as a coach, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, internal coach, whatever that is. So that's my thought.
Wonderful. Well, we hope that you'll come back for episode number 2. Next time, we're going to be coming together to look at the 4 cornerstones of coaching many, taking us back into the foundations of this work. And again, you don't have to be working with a group or a team to benefit from this podcast. I want to make that really clear, because one of the things we have heard for almost 20 years is, do I need to be working with a group already? No, we want to whet your appetite, because here's the thing. Coaching is coaching is coaching. And the timeline of individual coaching, group coaching, team coaching is all very different. You might not have a team coaching engagement on your list of things to do right now, but you might get a call tomorrow. And we hope that this is going to serve you with some ideas, some things that will hopefully reinforce what you already know and shadow things that you might want to explore or look or learn about. So within our time, as Evana said, we want to educate, we want to provoke, we want to also stimulate you as a human, as a coach of individuals, groups, and teams. And that's a pretty big landscape. 2024, the world needs us now more than ever. I know many of you have heard me say that, especially during the pandemic. But what we have seen come out of the last few years is this real need for connection, for belonging, for community. And this is one of the vehicles to get us there. So I look forward to many, many hours of conversation with you, Evana. You can find us on all of your different podcast players. Please make sure to subscribe. We will be setting up, of course, coachingmanypodcast.com. You can find us there, and you can find us on various social feeds. One last plug I want to make, 2 things, actually. I want to put a plug. If you've never heard about our programming, we have the whole Essentials series of programming, group coaching essentials, team coaching essentials, virtual facilitation essentials. And we now, of course, have evolved up to a 60 and 125 hour of ICF CCE approved coach training for group and team coaches. So if you're interested in getting certified, if you're interested in working towards your ACTC, the new advanced credential in team coaching, check us out, please. groupcoachingessentials.ca. Again, that's groupcoachingessentials.ca. The other thing I wanted to just put a plug in, Twice a month, we meet for community calls, and they're to facilitate conversation and also bring to life, give you the experience of being part of a collaborative coaching conversation. So please join us. Tuesdays, typically 12 noon Eastern for about 30 to 40 minutes. And those are held consistently in our Potentials Realized Zoom room. I will not mention the Zoom room number because, of course, we know there are still trolls out there that love to disrupt calls. The other piece I'd say is we don't let bots in the room because coaching is a confidential space. So sorry, no bots, no note takers allowed. So Evana, what would you like to say as we go to the end of our first episode?
Yeah, just thank you for a great conversation, and thank you for the people who are listening to us. And just, I think it's really about using the space as the inspiration to support you in your evolution, in your growth, and sharpening your saw, but also to open your mind to how you want to show up as a human, as a leader, and as a coach. It's really a joy, and looking forward to many more conversations. And thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon. We'll hear you soon. Take care. Bye bye.